Hello everyone, and welcome to the second part of this MOOC dedicated to the hydrocracking process. In the first part, we have located the hydrocracker in the overall refining scheme. Let's now focus on the feed properties of the hydrocracking unit. As we have already well detailed in the MOOC dedicated to the FCC, the VGO has a typical distillation range between 375 and 550 degrees C. The properties that will be of interest for us in the hydrocracking are the density, the sulfur, the nitrogen, and metals and asphaltenes. Let's start with the density. The density of the VGO typically varies between 0.89 and 0.95, and this value is rather independent from the associated crude oil. The sulfur content of the VGO cut typically varies between 0.15 and 3 weight% and highly depends on the sulfur content of the crude processed within the refinery. The higher the sulfur content in the crude oil, the higher the sulfur amount in the VGO cut. As far as the nitrogen content is concerned, it typically varies between 500 and 3000 ppm. And we see that it is relatively little dependent on the nitrogen content of the associated crude. In terms of metal content, the focus is mainly on nickel and vanadium. Typical levels are in the order of few ppm, let's say 1 to 5 ppm weight. Finally, we also look at the asphaltene content in the VGO cut. But by the way, what is asphaltenes? These are long-chain molecules with several aromatic structures. Here is an example of the molecular structure of an asphaltene. They can also be defined as what is not soluble in heptane. These molecules tend to poison the catalysts, which is why we limit their content in the hydrocracker feed. One way to limit the amount of asphaltenes is to limit the endpoint in the vacuum distillation. In fact, these molecules tend to concentrate in boiling points beyond 570 degrees C. The asphaltene content is typically in the range of 100 to 300 ppm in a VGO. Asphaltenes create problems in the catalyst of the hydrocracker, and their content is limited to few hundreds of ppm. Let's now summarize. Density is a very good indicator of the type of feed you have. High density will produce dense products, and reversely. The sulfur content is a parameter that is monitored but is not really a problem in the process. It dictates the amount of H2S that will be produced in the reaction section, but this is not a serious issue. On the other hand, nitrogen is a parameter that we monitor very closely. Indeed, we will see that to crack the molecules of VGO, we use a cracking catalyst that does not tolerate nitrogen at all. So, to avoid lowering the cracking fraction of the catalyst, all the nitrogen will have to be removed at a very low level. Nitrogen is therefore a sizing criteria for designing the pretreatment section whose main purpose is to remove nitrogen for the reasons we just mentioned before. Regarding metals, they must be also removed to prevent the cracking catalyst from being poisoned. Likewise, asphaltenes. Here we are at the end of this second video dedicated to hydrocracking. While waiting for the third video, don't hesitate to answer the 5 questions of the quiz. See you in the third part to discuss the hydrocracking process. See you very soon. Bye bye!